Hello everyone. Let's review shlokas 162 and 163 in Lalitha Sahasranamam. Ajakshaya vinirmuktā mugdhā kśhipraprasādinī antarmukha samārādhyā bahirmukha sudurlabhā trayī trivarga nilayā tristhā tripuramālinī nirāmayā nirālambā svātmārāmā sudhā sṛutiḥ. Let's take a look at the meanings of the namas in these shlokas. The first nama here is Aja. Aja means one who is not born, so unborn. We may think, how can she be unborn? Because she is Parvati, Himavan's daughter. She is Meenakshi, Malayadwaja's daughter. So she was born in all of these. But in all of these, she was not born. She just appeared. And as the ultimate reality, that ultimate reality takes many different forms. So for example, if you take a baby becomes a girl becomes a woman becomes an old woman. If you see in all of this, the appearance of that person changes, but it is the same person. Similarly, this ultimate reality always exists, just appears in different forms for its own happiness. And therefore, she is Aja, unborn. The next nama is kśhaya vinirmuktā. Kśhaya means decay. Vinirmuktā means being liberated from. So she is free from decay. As we all know, anything that is born has to go through growth, decay and ultimately death. But as she is not born, she is not subject to decay. Also, as the ultimate reality, she always exists and she is eternal, and therefore there is no decay for her. The next nama is mugdhā. Mugdhā means beautiful. You can also call it as innocent. Innocent in the sense that does not think harm for other people. So she does not mean harm for anyone. Even in her anger, when she destroys an asura, that is only to elevate them and give them liberation so they can be born as a better being. The next nama here is kśhipraprasādinī. Kshipra means speedily, quickly. Prasadini means one who bestows her grace, bestows her blessings. So kśhipraprasādinī means one who bestows her grace quickly. Antarmukha samārādhyā. Antarmukha means facing inward. So mukham is face, antar means inward. So antarmukha means facing inward. Samārādhyā. Samārādhyā means to win over. So antarmukha samārādhyā means she can be won over when we are facing inward. Bahirmukha sudurlabhā. Bahirmukha means facing outward or indifferent. So in this context, the inward and outward represent focus on our body and mind and who we are versus focus on attaining the external things in this world. So bahirmukha means one whose focus is on the external objects. Sudurlabhā. Durlabhā means difficult. Sudurlabhā means very difficult. So for those who are focused outward or whose attention is on obtaining external things, she is very difficult to attain. So when we look at antarmukha samārādhyā, bahirmukha sudurlabhā, together they mean that when we focus inward, then she is someone we can win over and attain. But when our focus is on external objects, then she is very difficult to attain. So what does attaining Lalitha mean? So Lalitha is that ultimate reality, the universal consciousness. So when an individual recognizes that their individual consciousness and the universal consciousness are one and the same, they are said to have attained Lalitha. So how does one come to recognize that their individual consciousness and universal consciousness is one and the same? For that, first of all, they have to let go of this aham idam or I versus the world perspective, right? So you have to understand the union of those two. So how do you let go of that I versus the world? And how do we come out of that perspective and start to see the everything as one? for that, first we have to understand who I am. So that I is something that needs to be understood. It can be called as an identity, it can be called as ego. And in order to let go of that ego, in order to understand that, we have to look inward. We have to look inward into our mind, look inward beyond our body, beyond our senses, bring that mind under control. Only then we can understand what I is, and when we recognize that, then there will be oneness of experience, and that means attaining Lalitha. So, attaining Lalitha begins with focusing on our mind and focusing on the thoughts that we carry, focusing on the reasons behind those thoughts, and then from there cleansing those thoughts and trying to align our thought, word and action in one line. And then as we go further and further, we improve in maturity and finally attain that Devi who resides within our heart. The next nama here is trayī. Trayī means the collection of three Vedas. So the three Vedas are Rig, Yajur and Sama. Most of us would have heard that there are four Vedas, right? Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharva. And the reason the three Vedas came first and fourth Veda came a little bit later. And also Atharva Veda also has things that allow you to attain worldly objects. So it's not solely focused on that ultimate reality. Whereas the other three Vedas are all about understanding that ultimate reality and taking steps to achieve that ultimate reality. Atharva Veda also has a little bit about how to live in this world, how to attain things that give us happiness and pleasure. And usually Atharva Veda is kept as a secret because when it falls in the wrong hands, it could be abused, and therefore they do not give that out so easily. That's why there are only three Vedas that are mentioned here, and they were the original three Vedas. So she is the collection of all the three Vedas. On the other hand, you can also interpret it as she is the one the three Vedas collectively represent. So you can think of it that way also. It is said that the first letter in Rig Veda starts with the first word in Rig Veda starts with the letter A, and the first word in Yajur Veda starts with the letter E, and the first word in Sama Veda again starts with the letter A. So A plus E plus A, when you combine all of that, it becomes I. And if you put the bindu, Aim is the Bija Mantram of the Vagbhavakuta, and the Vagbhavakuta represents Lalitha's face. So in that, she is the union or collective representation of the Vedas. The next nama here is trivarga nilayā. 3 is the number 3. Vargam means category and nilayā means stationed in. So the trivargam is, in everybody's life, in a human being's life, there are 4 goals that are worth pursuing. And all our actions is towards at least one or more of these. And they're called as purushartha. So the first one is dharma. And dharma is the rules that allow us to remain in harmony with the universe, with the community and within ourselves. So those are dharma. And there are several things that allow you to remain in harmony, and there are many forms of things that can be put under the dharma category. For example, donating money, donating food, donating blood, or doing service for other people, or educating others. All these are dharma. Similarly, the next one is artha. Artha is anything that gives us prosperity. So anything that gives us purpose and makes us go after it. So that could be your money, it could be property, it could be relationships. All of these come under artha. And so there are many of them. And then the next one is called as kama. Kama is anything that gives us pleasure, anything that we desire. So, and kama can be in many things, right? So it could be something that we love to eat. There could be something, music is and that, or even looking at natural sceneries and enjoying that. So many things fall under kama. And the fourth one is called as moksha. Moksha means liberation. And what is liberation? Liberation means freedom from wanting anything. So freedom from pursuing anything. So moksha cannot be categorized. There is only one thing. Moksha is not wanting anything. So while dharma, artha and kama are categorizing, grouping of things, moksha is by itself, and that's why it's called as apavargam. So the trivargam here represents the dharma, artha and kama. So trivarga nilayā means she is also stationed in the dharma, artha and kama. So even though we think we are pursuing that, that is also a way to pursue her. So she is stationed in the three vargas, which is dharma, artha and kama. Tristhā, 3 again is the number 3, and stha means to reside in or standing. So tristha could be standing as 3, or she is in triads. So that means she is always in groupings of 3. So for example, we can think of that as, we've always said the triad of reality, right? Experience, experiencer, the process of experiencing. So there are 3. Or you can think of it as Vagbhavakutam, Madhyakutam and Shaktikutam. Or you can think of it as sun, moon and fire. Or you can think of it as day, night and evening. So these are all groupings of 3. Or the awake state, dreaming state and the sleep state. So there are several triads that are available, and she is in the triads of, she is in the triad. And she is the triad of reality, which is the experience, experiencer and the process of experiencing. Tripuramālinī. Tripuramālinī is the presiding deity of the 6th avarana of the Sri Chakra. So she is the Tripuramālinī. So if you look at Khadgamala, you will realize that the 6th avarana is called as Sarva Rakshakara Chakra Swamini Nigarbha Yogini. So Sarva Rakshakara Chakra Swamini means one who always protects, one who continuously protects us. So Tripuramālinī is the one who always protects us, and Lalitambika is nothing but, Tripuramālinī is nothing but Lalitambika. It's just one more way of looking at Lalitambika, and she is one who always protects us. So in Sri Vidya tradition, the Sri Chakra sadhana is used as a instrument to realize or to reach enlightenment. And there are many ways in which the sadhana can be pursued. From bindu up to the outer layer, it's called as the sṛutiḥ krama, which is the creation process from bindu up to the outer layer. And the ultimate reality has manifested in all of these forms, and each one of us is that form, and we are all in that outside layer, the Trailokya Mohana Chakra. So we are all infatuated with the gross world, the material world. And Sri Chakra sadhana is a way to attain or recognize our oneness with that ultimate reality. And each avarana has certain devatas, and there is a procedure in which we continue to do that sadhana. So when somebody gets to the 6th avarana, at that point, the biggest difference that happens is that, the Sri Chakra process is such that we satiate all our desires. We satisfy everything, and then we go to a point. So it is a point of coming from the fullness, coming from getting everything that you want and therefore not having any more wants. So it comes to that. Of course, there is at a point, it doesn't mean that every desire of ours is fulfilled. We start to align our desires with the Devi. So we start to recognize that there is no more beyond Devi's world. So it is not just literally getting every one of our desires fulfilled. But when somebody comes to the 6th avarana, that's a very important point where this I versus the world starts to dissolve. So the knowledge of I and this world are not different and one and the same starts to reveal. That's why it is called as Nigarbha Yogini. It is not born, it's not newly gained, it's all always there, but it just comes up in that. So at that time, we start to recognize, anyone who's in that stage will start to recognize that they and the world are one and the same. Until then, if you see, all our actions, because we see the world as different from us, most of us, our actions are always towards protecting our self-interest, right? We always make sure that we are not taken advantage of, that we are not compromising, that whatever we want is protected. So that protection of our interest against the world is the way in which we all operate. That becomes the fundamental essence of our actions. When somebody gets into that sixth avarana, then they begin to realize that there is no I versus the world, and therefore there is nothing to fear from, and there is nothing to protect yourself from. That means we were always protected. Whatever we want, it could always happen. And that's why it's called as Sarva Rakshakara Chakra Swamini. So as Tripuramālinī, she's someone who always protects us. Nirāmayā, which can be split as nirāmayā. Nir means is always a negation. Amaya means sickness. It could be the sickness of the body or sickness of the mind. Nirāmayā means one who is free from the sickness of body and mind. Because as ultimate reality, she is beyond the body and mind, and therefore she is free from all this, or it doesn't apply to her. Nirālambā, which can be split as nirālambā. Alambā means to support. Nirālambā means without support. So what it means is, she does not need the support. She is the foundation of the universe, and therefore she does not require support. She supports everything. So she is nirālambā. Svātmārāmā. Svātmārāmā is split as svātmārāmā. Svātma means one's own self. Ārāma means to rejoice, to delight. So she is someone who's rejoicing in her own self. So if you see, this ultimate reality, just for its fun, has split into so many forms, right? Has manifested into so many forms. And each form is only for her own pleasure. So it is in each form, Lalitha gets to play all the different roles and go through all the emotions, and it is a beautiful movie playing for her. So she's rejoicing in her own self. And the universe is nothing but that ultimate reality, and it is being created for the pleasure of that ultimate reality. Sudhā sṛutiḥ. Sudhā means nectar. Sṛutiḥ means stream. So like a river, stream. So Sudhā sṛutiḥ means she is a stream of nectar. So it is said that when the Kundalini rises and it reaches the Sahasrara, up in the Sahasrara, there is a cup of nectar. And once the Kundalini rises up to that, that nectar flows downward and comes back, and realized yogins have a way of capturing that nectar, which becomes the source of their youthfulness or long-lasting life, and that also becomes the way to realization. So she is the stream of nectar. With that, we have looked at all the namas in these two shlokas, and let's look at a small story related to the nama kśhipraprasādinī. Kśhipraprasādinī means one who bestows her blessings quickly. So once Shiva and Parvati were in Kailasa, and Parvati playfully closed Shiva's eyes. And as we all know, Shiva's eyes is the source of sustenance for this entire world, entire universe. And as soon as Parvati closed Shiva's eyes, it resulted in a pralayam. Pralayam means dissolution. So it resulted in dissolution, and it was a very short time that she closed his eyes. In the earth time, it was about 40 minutes. But that was enough to create dissolution, and the entire universe dissolved. And Parvati immediately became very dark. And so Shiva was very upset that Parvati closed his eyes. And he turned to Parvati and he said, Parvati, you should know how important this is, and you should not have been so playful. Look at now the result of your actions. And we've also seen, as she closed his eyes, the heat from Shiva's third eye created a sweat in her palm, and when she put that drop of sweat, it became a baby, which is Andhakasura. So we've seen that story. So now Parvati is asking, what's happened? Why have I become so black now? What am I supposed to do? And then Shiva said, this untimely dissolution of the universe resulted in the sins of all the being in the universe attaching to yourself, and that's why you have become dark. And the only way for you to get back your previous self is to do some tapas, go back to the earth, do tapas, and let go of all these sins, and then I'll come back and marry you. So Parvati was a bit dejected. Something that she did playfully resulted in her having to leave Kailasa. So, but anyways, this is the way now. So Parvati descended to the earth and she came near the seashore. And so she was there deciding to do the penance there. And word got out that now Parvati has left Kailasa and she's gone to earth and she is near a seashore. So now everybody started visiting Parvati. So Indra came, Agni came, Vayu came, and then Agastya, Vasishta, Vyasa, everybody is coming to visit Parvati. So then Parvati did not have any time to do the penance at all, because she has to undergo the penance, get rid of all the sins, and only then she can go back to Kailasa. So she had no time to do all of this. And then Parvati thought, if I stay near the seashore, I'm not going to be able to do the penance. So quickly she left her current form as a statue there, and then she went further inside, away from the sea, and she went inside and she went to a place called Mangadu. Mangadu is a forest, a mango forest, if you will. So she went there, and then there she created a Pancha Agni, and in the midst of that Pancha Agni, she stood on one foot, and then she put her hands up, and then she started to do her penance towards Shiva. And Parvati's penance was very intense, and she was in the midst of fire, and so the heat was getting generated and the entire universe could feel that heat. But she did not stop her penance. She kept on doing it, and it was a very intense penance to get rid of the sins that she had accumulated. And at that time she heard a voice which said that, Parvati, please proceed to Kanchipuram, and in Kanchipuram I will come and marry you. So Parvati heard that and she was ready to go to Kailasa. So she was ready to follow whatever. So quickly she left Mangadu and she went to Kanchipuram. And when she went to Kanchipuram, she was looking for Shiva everywhere because she heard that voice, and so she thought Shiva will be waiting for her in Kanchipuram, but she could not find Shiva anywhere. And while she was searching, she found that there was a mango tree. So she went and started doing she created a Shivalingam with sand under that mango tree, and she started doing puja for Shiva while she was waiting for Shiva to show up. Days passed by, but nothing was happening. Shiva was not coming, and she wasn't sure what to do. At least in Mangadu, she was focused on doing the penance, but here she didn't know what to do. At that time, Sage Narada came, and Sage Narada told Parvati, you know what, I want you to recite this Panchabana mantra towards Shiva, and you continue doing it, and then Shiva will come. So Parvati immediately listened to what Sage Narada said, and then she began to chant the Panchabana mantra. So she's continually chanting Panchabana mantra and doing puja for Shiva. So this Panchabana mantra is the Manmada's mantra. So it is a mantra that creates love, or that creates feelings of love. And now Shiva was already in love with Parvati. So as she's chanting this Panchabana mantra, now Shiva is feeling the heat. And it is the separation from his beloved. So the tapam is something that he is able to feel. And Shiva is trying somehow to quench all of this. He's taking bath in the rivers. He's trying to do everything possible to cool himself down. But Parvati's Panchabana mantra has such an effect on Shiva that he's not able to quench that heat. So then Shiva calls Ganga, who is in his Jaramudi, and he says, Ganga, you have to go and do something so that Parvati stops chanting. I can't take this heat. So he sends Parvati, he sends Ganga towards Parvati. And so Ganga now acquired all the water possible, and from Shiva's Jadamudi, she came onto the earth with such a force, and the force was terrifying, and when she hit the earth was shaking. and therefore she is also called as Kampa, and in Kanchipuram she is also called as Vegavati. So she was coming at Parvati with such a force, whole idea being that she will frighten Parvati and then Parvati will stop chanting the Panchabana mantra. So that was the whole idea. And so this water is rushing towards her, and one of Parvati's attendants, she tried to stop the water, and she's called as Pradaya Bandini, because the water she was able to stop, but then the force of Ganga was such that she was just coming towards Parvati. And obviously Parvati in her terror should have stopped chanting the Panchabana mantra. But what happened was, the first thought for Parvati was, I made a lingam with sand, and if so much water comes, then the lingam will dissolve. So at all costs she wanted to protect the lingam from the water. And therefore Parvati ran to that lingam, and she held the lingam tight so close to her bosom, such that her bosom left a print on the lingam, as well as her bangles was imprinted on the lingam. And at that point Shiva was very pleased with the devotion of Parvati. Even when the water was coming, her thought was not for herself, and it was for Shiva first. And therefore immediately all the water receded, and then suddenly Parvati found herself sitting in Shiva's lap. So Shiva had shown up. So obviously Shiva is not someone who's going to take her tapas without testing the devotion. So now she has successfully passed this test, and therefore she was very pleased, and he showed up. And immediately Shiva called Vishnu, and he asked Vishnu to make arrangements for the wedding. And so Vishnu made such elaborate arrangements, and the entire world was there to witness. And it is said that when Shiva and Parvati's marriage happened, sage Agastya was sent to the south, because everybody was in the north, and then it started to tilt, and therefore to balance that, sage Agastya was sent. And at that time sage Agastya felt very bad. When the entire world is able to see the marriage, he alone is not able to witness. So Shiva said, in many places I will come and marry Parvati again and again, and you will get a chance to witness it. And therefore now this happened in Kanchipuram, and there was an amazing wedding, a very grand wedding that happened. And then Vishnu gave the hand of Parvati to Shiva, and therefore Shiva is there as Ekamranatha. So Amra is mango, so under the mango tree, so he's there as Ekamranatha, and Parvati is also there as Kamakshi. And as Kamakshi, she is one who gives all our desires. And Kamakshi is also called as Kamakoti. Even if we have 1,000 desires, she'll give all of it. And whatever we do there increases our punyam count in crores of counts. So Shiva and Parvati are said to reside there even now, and they are blessing everybody. So this is the story of Parvati coming down on earth to get rid of all her sins and going back to Kailasa. So now we know that she came and first came to a seashore. That seashore is none other than in the city called Chennai. So in Chennai, near that seashore, she left that statue. So it so happened that a group of fishermen found that statue. So in Chennai at that time, there were 3 hamlets, kuppam, fishermen's villages. So it was called as Chennakuppam, Madrasakuppam, and Arukuppam. So those were the 3 kuppams there, and fishermen lived there, and they made their living by going into the sea, getting the fish and selling it. So the fishermen found the statue, and it was dark, and they found it near the sea, so they called her Kadal Kali. And they kept her in a place, and they first did not think too much about it, because they thought it was some statue that they found in the sea. But interestingly, they started to observe that whenever they saw this Kadal Kali and went for fishing, they were able to get lots and lots of fish. So that was interesting for them. And so she became their lucky charm. So all the fishermen started to have habits where before going to the sea, they will always pray to her. At that time, she did not have any name or anything like that, but they just thought this was Kadal Kali and she was a lucky charm. And then instances happened where the fishermen felt like she was the one who saved them from the dangers of the sea. So if there was a cyclone or something like that, they felt that they were protected. So they started to believe in her more, and they realized that she is a goddess who came to protect them. And Kali, Kapaval Kali. So in Tamil, Kapaval means one who protects. So they started to believe in her more, and now they definitely wanted to give her a name, and they actually called her Chennamma. In fact, Chennai gets the name from this deity, Chennamma. So Chennamma was very popular, and everybody did all the festivals, etc. And later on, the East India Company came, and they were ruling Madras, and they wanted to build a fort. And where they wanted to build the fort, this temple for Chennamma was also there. So now it was a problem for the East India Company. A fort is mainly for protection and security, right? So they cannot allow everybody inside. So if this temple continues to remain inside the fort, then they have to allow the fishermen, which is a security threat. But at the same time, they did not want to impact the temple or mess with the religious sentiments of the people there. So the East India Company approached the villages and asked them to relocate their temple to another place in Chennai called Paris Corner. And so today, where the original temple was, you can see that there is the George Fort. And now this temple has been relocated about 400 years ago to a place called Tambuchetti Street in Chennai. It is in Paris Corner. It's a very busy place of very, very busy part of Chennai, and that's where this temple is. And the Visvakarma community built this particular temple, and she is called as Chennai Kaligambal. So how do we know that she is Kamakshi? If you see, generally when we say Kali, Kali is one who has this long hair. She has a very fierce form, and she has the garland of skulls, and then she is holding all the different weapons and with her tongue out. Whereas if you see in Chennai Kaligambal temple, she is a very beautiful form. She is holding Pasam, Angusham, Nilotpalam, and then she also has a Varada Mudra. So she has a very divine, beautiful form. And the temple of Chennai Kaligambal, in there, the way she is residing is called as kśhipraprasādinī, one who is ready to bestow favors. How do we know that? It's because of her Varada Mudra. If you look at Kamakshi, Lalitambika, Rajrajeshwari, they're all the same, right? And all of them, if you see, you can always find them holding Pasham, Angusham, maybe the sugarcane bow, and then the flowers, all the 5 flower arrows. And mostly they're holding this, and Kamakshi may be holding a parrot. Those are all the things that you will see them. They don't have abhayam or varadam. Abhayam means removing fear, varadam means bestowing boons. All 3 forms do not have that. And where is that abhayam and varadam? It's always in their legs. If you hold Lalitambika's legs, you will get whatever you want. So that's how these forms are. But in here, and even though they're always granting everything, in here she is explicitly showing us the Varada Mudra to say that I'm sitting here to bestow whatever we want. Chennai Kaligambal temple is supposed to be a very powerful deity. Whoever comes and asks for whatever they want, that materializes, and that is the history of this temple. And also, if you see, one special thing about this Chennai Kaligambal temple is that it is facing, the Garbhagraham is facing the west. Usually the Garbhagraham is always facing the east. There are a few temples that are facing west, but this is one of the notable temples that's facing the west. And it's said that west is the direction of Varuna. Varuna is the rain god or the ocean god. And if you think of rain or the ocean, the rain and ocean are donors. They give selflessly. So many thousands of beings get their, have their home in the ocean, and they get everything. And if you see this entire world, without rain, we won't get food or crops, and therefore rain is essential. So facing the west direction symbolically, she's saying that I'm willing to give you whatever you want, and she's showing us through the Varada Mudra. And it's said that when in Mangadu, as soon as she heard the voice that, go to Kanchipuram, she quickly left Mangadu and went to Kanchipuram. And Mangadu became so hot. and nobody could get anywhere inside because of the penance, the seriousness of the penance, and she was standing in the Pancha Agni. So at that time, Adi Shankaracharya installed the Meru, and that's how he was able to cool down. And today, anybody who goes to Mangadu, the belief is that if someone wants to get married and if they pray in Mangadu, they'll definitely find a good match. So that is the thing. And Adi Shankaracharya followed that intensity, and he realized the Chennai Kaligambal temple also, there is the intensity, and therefore he has installed the Ardhameru there, and that is also supposed to be installed by Adi Shankaracharya, and therefore her Ugram has come down, and that's why she is looking very beautiful. So in Chennai Kaligambal temple, Kamakshi is standing there as kśhipraprasādinī, and it is supposed to be a temple that was also visited by Chhatrapati Shivaji, and he is supposed to be a great devotee of Bhavani, so he has also visited this temple. And it is also a temple that was the favorite place of one of popular poets of Tamil. In fact, he is the poet of Tamil, Bharadiyar. So Mahakavi Bharadiyar has been in this temple, and he's also sang a song called Yadumagi Nindrai Kali. It is believed that he sang based on this particular deity. So as Kśhipraprasādinī, she's always waiting there to bestow our blessings. All we have to do is to bring her thought in our mind wherever we are. That's all for today.